James Gunn promised the upcoming DC slate sometime in January, and we were waiting for so long, like any day now it could happen, but it turns out he waited to the very last day, and now we finally got it, and it is still January, unless of course you live in like Australia, because it's already February over there by the time they announced the slate. James Gunn has said that the first chapter of the DC universe, which I assume is their version of phases, although it may be their version of a saga, is called Gods and Monsters, and will include many more projects than what has been revealed today. Gods and Monsters is the name of a Justice League movie in an alternate universe where they're anti-heroes and they're alternate universe versions of certain villains, but I don't think that has anything to do with the title of this chapter. I think it just means that this chapter will feature a lot of gods and a lot of monsters, and will also include many more projects than what has been revealed today. That being said, I didn't expect this much content to be revealed. I mean, we got 5 movies, even more TV shows, an animated TV show, titles for certain projects, and in some cases, even official release dates for upcoming movies, and in this video I will break down all of it, so don't forget to subscribe sometime in January, and let's get started. Actually, before getting into the actual movies and TV shows, James Gunn explained a bit about the situation regarding movies like The Batman and Joker, as well as movies coming out in 2023, that being this year. Movies like The Batman as well as The Joker are now considered as Elseworlds and don't take place within the main DC universe, but also movies like those are considered outliers, as James Gunn and Peter Safran are aiming for a very connected DC franchise throughout movies, TV shows, and even animated content, as well as video games. Alongside this explanation, The Batman 2 was given an official title, which is The Batman Part 2, which isn't really all that interesting of a title, but obviously that doesn't actually affect the movie. It was also given a release date of October 2025, meaning the upcoming movies that won't be a part of the DC universe and are considered Elseworlds are Joker 2 in 2024, The Batman Part 2 in 2025, as well as the Black Superman movie that's been in development for a while. It doesn't have an official release date, but probably will come out at some point. Alongside the movies are a couple TV shows. James Gunn did specifically mention Teen Titans Go as something that isn't a part of the main DC universe and is considered Elseworlds, but also shows like Superman and Lois, I guess the upcoming Gotham Knights, those are also considered Elseworlds as well. I was going to mention this at the end, but because I just talked about them, James Gunn was asked about Superman and Lois and Gotham Knights in the press release from the day before the announcement, and he did say that Superman and Lois will continue for a few more seasons, which I'm glad to hear, but also he had no comment about Gotham Knights. I cannot see a world where that gets a second season. Literally nobody wants to watch it, and I probably won't even watch it. It looks terrible. Moving on though. In regards to the 2023 movies, James Gunn said that they kinda got lucky with this batch of movies. Shazam! Fury of the Gods and Shazam has been mostly standalone from the rest of the DCEU, so they can pretty easily incorporate him into the new DC universe. This, combined with a statement from James Gunn from the press release, where he answered a question about Zachary Levi's recent, vaccination drama, and he said that actors and their political standings won't change his plans for the future of DC. Basically confirming, alongside the fact that he said that they got lucky with the movie Shazam! Fury of the Gods, confirms that Zachary Levi will be remaining in the role. Then the Flash movie will reset the universe before Blue Beetle as well as Aquaman 2 come out, and Aquaman 3 was also teased by Peter Safran. All of these things combined with what we already know, combined with what we will know from the new slate, leads me to the conclusion that the characters who are remaining from the old DCEU, meaning prior to the Flash movie, are Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, the Suicide Squad characters, and the Peacemaker characters. However, none of the shows or movies up until Shazam! Fury of the Gods can be considered canon, or at the very least they can't be considered as a part of the first chapter of the DC universe. This is because The Flash will reset the universe, meaning that Blue Beetle will in fact be the first movie that takes place in this new universe, which is something that I've speculated for a while now. It did seem like the Flash movie was going to be like Flashpoint and reset the universe, and the next DC movie to come after that is Blue Beetle, and James Gunn has been very excited about this movie. So yeah, it seems like Blue Beetle will be the first movie in the new DC universe. That being said, while the old DC movies can't be considered fully canon, I think in some instances they won't need to deviate from that established canon all too much, like Shazam or even Aquaman, especially since Peter Safran's tease of Aquaman 3 actually came in the form of him saying that they are planning on completing the Aquaman trilogy, so maybe if they make a third Aquaman movie and a third Wonder Woman movie or a third Shazam movie, those will be considered trilogies, but it will be only the third movie which will be canon and a part of the new DC universe, which is something that they might have to explain in some sort of explanation video or a guide, because that is a bit confusing to people who aren't in the know. But enough of all of that, let's get to the actual juice here. Let's get to the actual movies and TV shows that have been confirmed by James Gunn for the next couple of years, and we'll start with what is the actual official beginning to this new universe, that being the Superman movie, which has definitely been the movie that has gotten the most focus. This movie has been given an official title, that being Superman Legacy, and an official release date of July 11th, 2025. This is absolutely fantastic. The fact that they're already starting things off in July 2025 is very promising for the future of DC. They've always been very bad at following through with what they promised in a reasonable amount of time. Just look at the Flash movie, look how long it took that movie to be made, and honestly, I expected that they maybe released a movie in late 2025, like on the verge of 2026, but mid-2025 is very exciting and very impressive. James Gunn is very good at getting things out quickly, so this is really promising for the future of DC and their ability to actually give us what they told us they're going to give us in a reasonable amount of time. Now, I've talked about this movie many times over the last few months, including teases to the casting, and any teases towards the story they will draw inspiration from, and when it comes to the casting, we don't really have any news, and James Gunn said that there won't be any news for a while, but when it comes to the stories being teased, I think that we could already form a basis for what this movie may be about. The stories that have been teased include Up in the Sky, which would be a great story for this movie to take inspiration from. Not direct inspiration, since the story is very episodic in nature, but I think the basic story elements that they have here would be great for a movie. There's also Superman for Tomorrow, which is a story I really don't like, and I don't think they should take any inspiration from that story at all. There's also All-Star Superman, which was actually teased in the video that James Gunn released this with, where like the picture they used to show Superman was Superman from All-Star Superman, which I could definitely see forming the tonal basis for the movie, but definitely not the story basis, since, spoiler alert, it's a very old story. He dies in that story. It's about a very seasoned Superman, and then he dies at the end, or at least he kind of dies. But then there's also What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, which is a fantastic story and would be perfect for this movie. I do think that the title Superman Legacy probably fits that story the best, since the story kind of challenges Superman's place in the world and, in the long run, his legacy, but it's a pretty universal title, like it's a pretty generic title. I'm not complaining, I think it sounds pretty cool, but it can refer to a lot of things. My first thought when I think about Superman and his legacy is his son, Jonathan Kent, but we know that this version of Superman will be much younger, so that will not be the case. Jonathan Kent will not be appearing anytime soon, which is a bit of a shame, because that means that John Kent, if he ever appears at all, will be in a completely different generation to Damian Wayne. That brings us to the second movie, or rather the second movie that I'll talk about, since none of the other movies or TV shows other than The Batman Part 2 and Superman Legacy have any release date or even a release year. This movie is called The Brave and the Bold, and will introduce this universe's version of Batman, as well as Robin. So yes, this universe will also have a Batman movie franchise, meaning there's going to be two Batman movie franchises at the same time. Although it seems like this Batman movie franchise will be much more Bat Family focused. Gunn has confirmed that this movie will take inspiration from Son of Batman, which is a story that he's teased before in a tweet. In fact, it's a tweet where he swore that story isn't a hint to the universe, so that was a lie. Son of Batman and its animated movie counterpart Batman and Son, which is also the first Batman movie in a DC universe, revealed to Bruce that he has a 10-year-old son with Talia al Ghul named Damian, which leads to Damian becoming the latest in a long series of Robins. This is almost exactly what I would have wanted from this universe's Batman, not necessarily this story or even Damian Wayne as Robin, but for him to be a good 10 years into his career, giving us the opportunity to have an already established Bat family, with characters like Nightwing, Red Hood, Red Robin, and Batgirl all already existing, without having to build that all up from scratch, because that would take forever. Gunn even teased that this movie will lead into the Bat family in some way, or maybe even feature some other Bat family characters. I personally would have preferred to start with Tim Drake Robin, but at this point Damian is much more popular, so I definitely understand going with Damian. Either way, I'm very excited for this movie. Honestly, I'm more excited for this movie than The Batman Part 2, since I just, at this point, am a little bit more interested in a slightly older Batman with more of a Bat family than what seems to be going on with the Batman movies, which is just him by himself. This movie shares its title with an animated show, Batman the Brave and the Bold, which is easily the goofiest and most fantastical animated version of Batman we've seen. It's also one of the best Batman TV shows, suggesting that this movie will feature a Batman who's a bit more fantastical, which I feel like is a bit of a good thing. It is a departure from other cinematic versions of Batman, and I'm pretty excited about that, for this movie to tackle things that the Batman movies have strayed away from for years, like a blue batsuit with a yellow symbol, the Bat family, fighting more fantastical villains like Killer Croc and Clayface. I would love to see all of those things, and it seems like we will be getting things like that in this movie, so that's great. Another movie is The Authority, which is pretty crazy because in my last video talking about James Gunn and his hints about the DC Universe, I did say that since James Gunn hinted at the Wildstorm universe, I could definitely see a movie about The Authority happening, and yeah, now it's been confirmed. For those of you who don't know, The Authority are from the Wildstorm universe, which is a comic book world that was published through DC Comics for years before being integrated into the DC Universe in 2011 with the New 52. The most popular members of this group and the Wildstorm universe in general are Midnighter and Apollo, who are very similar, at least in design and in their abilities, to Batman and Superman. But not only do they have vastly different personalities, they are also a gay couple, but also the other members of the Authority are not popular at all, so much so that the recent use of the Authority only used Midnighter and Apollo, and the rest of the team consisted of characters from the DC Universe, where Superman brought that team to Warworld to overthrow Mongol, which is a very cool story that I would not mind seeing in live action, but from what James Gunn said about this universe, it does seem like that it will consist of characters only from the Wildstorm universe, and it won't take place on Warworld at all. What's crazy about this movie is that The Authority might just be the least popular and least widely known DC property to ever get a theatrically released movie, and I absolutely love that. For years it was just Batman and Superman. The general audience still hasn't been exposed to the larger DC universe, at least not most of it. And yeah, if The Authority was one of the only movies being released and there wasn't any TV shows, then it would be a bit annoying that that's what they choose. But it seems like they're releasing multiple movies a year, plus TV shows, plus animated content. So to give The Authority a movie is really cool. It basically means that anything is possible. Any character or group or even like any universe can get its own movie, and that's just really cool. Also being released in the next few years is a Swamp Thing movie, which will retell his origin story for the big screen. The movie will have a darker tone and elements of horror. In fact, Gunn said the word dark, like the movie will be dark, maybe hinting at a future Justice League Dark project, which he's hinted at in the past. Regardless, I am excited for this movie. It's an origin story which is a bit less exciting since we already saw his origin recently in the 2019 TV show, but maybe this could be a higher budget version of that. It could be a higher spectacle, maybe feature other magical characters. Either way, a Swamp Thing movie is exciting. Again, it's a lesser known character, not as lesser known as The Authority, but a bit lesser known. And the fact that he's getting his own movie, it's like a different side of things, it's a different genre, it's a horror movie, is also really cool. Something that came much later is that the director of previous superhero movies The Wolverine and Logan, that being James Mangold, tweeted out this picture of Swamp Thing, which is a tweet that James Gunn liked as well. It does seem that that basically confirms that the movie will be directed by James Mangold, and if Logan is any indication, then it will probably be a very, very good movie. Even The Wolverine isn't bad. I mean, it's not great or anything, but it's pretty good. Hopefully, it's closer to the quality of Logan, though. And the final movie is actually a story I've talked about before in a video, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. This is the only movie that takes its title directly from a specific story in the comics, a story that James Gunn has hinted at in the past. This story, which is obviously called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, came out in 2022, so it's very recent, and it tells a story about Supergirl going to an alien planet with a red sun in order to get drunk on her 21st birthday. On that planet, she gets entangled in a girl's quest for revenge against the man who murdered her father, which leads to an adventure across the cosmos looking for that murderer. Gunn hinted at this story in the past, around the same time that he hinted at Superman up in the sky, both of which I talked about in this video here. Back then, I thought that the episodic nature of both stories would either lend itself better to just taking the basic elements for a movie, or in the case of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, taking the story as the basis for a TV show, or at least one season of a TV show. In the end, it is getting a movie. Regardless, I'm very excited for this. I think the story itself is pretty good. I love their characterization of Supergirl, which I think the CW show made too much like Superman. She has a different story, and I think a different story that is very, very interesting and has an emotional weight to it. The fact that her whole world got destroyed, but with Superman, he was a baby. She was already like a teenager. She has a lot more emotional connection to Krypton. That's something that the story focused on, and that's something that the movie should definitely focus on. And above all of that is the art. The art of this story puts it above the rest. It's breathtaking and should definitely be the visual inspiration for not only this movie, but basically every single movie that takes place in space. Those are all the movies that have been confirmed so far, but keep in mind that James Gunn said that this is just a part of the first chapter, which will no doubt feature more movies. And honestly, aside from Superman Legacy, there's nothing to say that all these movies won't come out a little bit later, and certain movies that haven't been announced yet may be earlier on in the chapter. Like, it's surprising to me that a Green Arrow movie wasn't confirmed. But that brings us to the TV shows, the side of DC that feels like it's been falling apart lately, like the Arrowverse is ending, the upcoming Gotham Knights TV show looks terrible, Titans and Doom Patrol have been cancelled, and there aren't a lot of shows left. However, this is a transitional period. We're entering the Disney Plus phase of TV shows for DC, or rather the HBO Max DC Universe phase, where the TV shows are mostly a part of the DC Cinematic Universe. The first and most interesting of these is Green Lantern. The Green Lantern HBO Max show has been in development for what feels like basically a decade at this point, going from being an anthology series spanning decades focusing on Alan Scott and Guy Gardner and possibly a couple others, to being a show about Jon Stewart, to now being reworked again to focus on Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan. This show was called Lanterns by James Gunn, but I doubt that'll be the actual title. I think he just meant like The Lanterns Show. I think that might just be a working title, because honestly that's kind of a lame title. It should just be called Green Lantern, or even Green Lanterns. We did get further details, a lot more details than most other projects, including that the show will be mostly terrestrial, meaning that it'll take place mostly on Earth, which isn't all that surprising considering it's not a movie, it's a TV show, so it has a bit smaller of a budget, and that it's inspired by True Detective, with a focus on the Green Lanterns being cops, and Sector 2814 is basically the neighborhood they patrol, with Earth basically being their precinct. People have been asking for a Hal and John buddy cop movie for years, and with True Detective as the inspiration, that is similar to what we'll get, although much less so buddy cop comedy and much more very dark, reluctant partner cops. I've said before that I think Green Lantern has Star Wars level Space Odyssey potential as a franchise, and this show kind of seems like the exact opposite of that. A mostly set on Earth True Detective style show is not what I expected, nor is it really what I wanted from Green Lantern in this universe. But what I'm hoping may come out of this is that it's the start. Maybe this will be a limited series like True Detective should have been, that establishes these characters at the most down-to-earth possible level that they can get to, before expanding to a big-budget, space-based series of movies. A TV show season being the first chapter in a movie series has, as far as I could tell, never been done before, but hey, at this point, anything is possible. I don't want the Green Lantern Corps to be relegated to a TV show. I think that it would be a much cooler movie series. It works way better as a space-based movie series. and that's what I would like to see, much more than a TV show. Also revealed amongst the slate is a Booster Gold TV show, which is something that I'm definitely very excited about. The show will showcase Booster Gold's origin story, which is that he's a bit of a loser from the future who steals a suit and in the comics a Legion of Superheroes flight ring and goes back to the past to use that technology to be a superhero, mostly because he wants to become famous. Gunn described him as a superhero with imposter syndrome, which I think is very, very fitting. I am pretty excited for this. I think it'd be really cool for him to cross over with the Blue Beetle movies and potentially with Ted Kord appearing in both. He's a really cool character. This is a TV show that I'm definitely excited about. Another TV show in development is Waller, which features Viola Davis reprising her role, which basically confirms that the actors from the Suicide Squad side of things will remain in their roles. That's not surprising at all. James Gunn had the most influence on that side of the DC universe prior to becoming head of DC. It makes sense that he'd want that side of the universe to remain, although the fact that it's not the only side of the universe to remain shows that it's not just like his things that he wants to keep around. But this actually pushes off Peacemaker Season 2, which was supposed to come out earlier, I guess. Waller will take place between Season 1 and 2, and Peacemaker characters will be appearing in this TV show. I'm not all that excited for this TV show because Amanda Waller as the main character doesn't sound all that interesting to me, but it is something that can be interesting. It's just not something I'm all that excited about. A show about Themyscira called Paradise Lost, which seems to be a prequel, was confirmed as well. Gunn described it as Game of Thrones, but on Paradise Island, and to me this does seem to indicate that Gal Gadot will remain as Wonder Woman, since they seem much less focused on introducing a new Wonder Woman compared to Batman and Superman. A show like this has actually been in development for a very long time. At one point it was going to be on the CW, now years later it's going to be on HBO Max and a part of this new DC universe. But it's a bit surprising that it's a part of the first chapter. Like, what characters will this show introduce, and what characters will it focus on that, say, a Wonder Woman movie couldn't focus on, who will be important for the larger DC universe? I think the answer is pretty clear. The chapter is called Gods and Monsters, so I think the gods will have a very large role. Now, I think the gods in the title is multifaceted. I think it is referring to characters like Superman, who are like gods among men, but also the new gods and the old gods, and I think all of those groups of characters have a part to play. With that in mind, Paradise Lost would be the perfect time to introduce the old gods and develop them as characters, which I'm fairly confident is what they will do, since otherwise this show will have 0 male characters. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I think a show with 0 female characters would be very weird as well. It obviously fits the show and its setting, and I definitely think the show will and should be mostly female characters, but I would say bring in the old gods to balance it in a bit. You know, you could have Zeus and you could have Ares and Hades. You could have a couple male characters, not the main characters, and not really all that substantial roles, but just to balance it out a bit, bring in the old gods. And finally is the only animated show that's been confirmed so far, that being a show about the creature Commandos, a group of monster-like heroes including Frankenstein, a werewolf, a vampire, and a couple others, who form a military unit during World War II. This show really fits the chapter's name of Gods and Monsters, and with being the only animated show in the slate, it's where Gunn explained how the animated shows will work, and it seems to be exactly how the Arrowverse did it. The Arrowverse had 2 very short animated shows called Vixen and Freedom Fighters of the Ray, and the voice actors for the main characters played those characters in live action as well. The same will be true for the DC Universe. The actors who voice the roles in Creature Commandos will also play them physically whenever they appear in live action, and vice versa for any predominantly live action character who appears in an animated TV show. This was a bit wonky for the Arrowverse, but that's mostly because the shows themselves, Vixen and Freedom Fighters The Ray, were bad and very, very short. I doubt the shows here will be the same, like, at all. Now, I don't know much about the Creature Commandos, but from what I've seen of them, they are definitely unique and interesting in a superhero world. We actually got a couple more details about Creature Commandos that I didn't realize until a little bit later, including the fact that the picture that James Gunn showed in his video is actually not from the comics. It's actually what the show will look like. It's a first look at the show. It's the first one of these projects that we actually have a look at, and also on the DC Twitter page, they said that this 7-episode animated show written by James Gunn shows Amanda Waller creating a Black Ops team out of monstrous prisoners. So for one, we know that this show will have 7 episodes. I'm hoping it's more like Invincible, level, where each episode is a bit longer, they spend a bit more time on each episode, and hopefully it's on the level of quality that Invincible gave us. We also know it's going to be written by James Gunn, and that this is basically another version of the Suicide Squad, like a monstrous Suicide Squad, as it's created by Amanda Waller, and it's made up of monstrous prisoners. The only difference is I'm pretty sure these characters are going to end up being completely like superheroes, not like the Suicide Squad who are reluctant heroes. They, I guess, are just prisoners because they are monsters and they were unfairly locked up. That's what I have to assume. There are some smaller details about the future of DC that have been revealed, including the following. This is where I was going to talk about Superman and Lois and Gotham Knights, so let's skip that and go straight to Ezra Miller and what Peter Safran said about them. Peter Safran said that Ezra Miller is committed to their recovery, and their future as the Flash will be discussed at a later date, so it does seem like Ezra might remain in the role. To me, it seems like they are definitely waiting for the movie to come out before they decide. And I really don't care how good or successful the movie will be. Like, for all things considered, it does look like it will be a very good movie. Everyone behind Warner Brothers said that they're very excited for it. James Gunn said that it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. And I don't care. I don't care how good it is. I don't care how successful it is. I think keeping Ezra Miller in the role will be a mistake. They are very miscast, they look and act nothing like Barry, and they are a PR nightmare. Keeping them around would be beyond stupid and would show that they're not learning from their mistakes. So just recast them, please. Give me a new Barry. Or a Wally. Gunn did say that they won't have actors playing more than one role in the DC Universe. I'm assuming he answered that question in regards to Jason Momoa and whether he's going to be playing Aquaman and or Lobo. This either means that since Jason Momoa is basically confirmed to be remaining as Aquaman, as Peter Safran said they're making Aquaman 3, or that he teased it, either means that Jason Momoa has been baiting us the entire time, or more likely Lobo will be an Elseworlds story, or even more likely than that, Jason Momoa will be an exception. So that is what we can expect in the next few years of the DC Universe. Honestly, though, this might all be in the years 2025 and 2026. I think they could definitely do that, but also there's many movies and TV shows that haven't been confirmed yet that probably will be coming out before some of the movies and TV shows that have been. I'm beyond excited for this new direction that DC is taking. I'm sick of the DCEU and the direction that they were taking for a while, and the more connected way that James Gunn is looking at things, and that's his focus, is very cool and very excited and exactly what I've wanted for a while. So that's it for this video. I know the announcement came yesterday and this video is today, but the announcement came out at 7 p.m. for me and it took me a couple hours to put things together and I just didn't have enough time. I wasn't going to stay up all night, so yeah, it's a bit late, but I don't know. I don't live in America. I can't keep up with these things. So yeah, it's gonna be the next day. Whatever. Yeah. Bye.